Good evening to all of those of you who are arriving. Welcome to this evening. We are really excited tonight to share with you some new information. We're going to be talking about healing in the new now, breaking guide to avoiding getting stuck in self-healing. And really, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Cindy Holmes. And I'm the director of the School of Intuition and Healing. And tonight, Sole is going to be co-hosting with me. We've been on a fascinating journey over the last 6 months to a year. And a lot of what we've kind of learned together over this time and strategies that we've put together and visions that we've put together for ourselves, we're going to share some of these with you tonight. We've co-created a new program called Nest. And I'm not going to say much more around it, but we're really excited to start to share this new methodology that we've been doing our best to apply to ourselves and working through what we are calling the new now. So I'm going to hand over to Solo, who can fill in a little bit more around what I've been talking about.
Yeah, so hello everyone and welcome. My name is Sole Kirko, if you haven't met before. I am one of the tutors of the School of Intuition and Healing, as well as being a spiritual energetic coach and healer in my own practice. So I am very privileged with the work that I do, talking with clients and students and connecting with the community of the school, the spiritual self-development community. And part of that privilege is that we really get to see and observe how energy is shifting around us. And if you've done this job for some time, and if you've been fortunate enough to be connected with loads of people and working with clients and students, etc., you start realizing that there are some patterns that individuals bizarrely experience similar things at the same time. And certainly we've all seen a huge amount of energetic shift as part of the pandemic and the aftermath of the pandemic. I think we're all kind of bored of the P word at this point. But the truth is it had an impact on our energy. And so over the course of the last maybe 6 months or so, we really realized that no matter how hard we were working as individuals, for Cindy and for myself, no matter how our students or clients were working or people in our community, but people would just feedback to us over and over again, I'm stuck. I've been doing my meditation, I've been doing my energy clearing, I've been doing my past life regressions, I've been doing my ancestral work, but I'm still stuck. I keep on putting the work in, but I don't necessarily see the same progress or output. And so we thought, well, let's figure out what this is all about. And we started investigating with again, with our community, with other tutors. We did several channeling sessions to see what messages and guidance was coming from highest source of information. And we took a very hard look at ourselves and what was showing up in our lives. We kind of used ourselves as our kind of guinea pigs, I guess you could put it, and really observing at themes and issues and blocks that were coming up over and over again. So what we're going to discuss with you this evening is just a bit of a brief recap of what's the new now and what is this energetic shift and why we need to change the way we do things, and really some very effective new techniques, new tools, new methodologies that are very practical, the work that allows us to understand why and where we're stuck and figure out what's next. So this is kind of where we're going to take the evening. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for you to reflect on your own personal healing journey. And please, if you would like to share your comments or your experience in the chat, feel free to do so. If you have any questions for us, you can raise your virtual hand on Zoom as well. And we'll just start with centering ourselves and reconnecting with our energy at the end of a busy Thursday for most of us, I'm sure. And we're going to together find our own individual starting point, perhaps where we're stuck at this moment. And granted, there might be more than one thing that we're dealing with at the moment, but we're just going to focus on one for this evening and just use that as an example of some of the things that we might be experiencing. So Cindy's going to talk us through a lovely intention setting visualization, and then we'll come back here, chat a little bit more about the new now, and then dive into some practical techniques, brand new information around healing, and what's next.
Thanks, Soleil. So I don't know how everyone else's energy is feeling after this lovely equinox that we've just had. I was saying to Soleil, you know, actually I was in an aeroplane moving from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, flying back from the open day, which we've just done in London, and spending some time there. And really, to have grounded my energy, I've needed to spend a lot of time just grounding, focusing, and doing some clearing, because it seems to have brought up quite a lot of things. So be aware of those tonight as we just go through our meditation and our visualization, and really just coming up with something that's feeling a little bit uncomfortable for you. But let us first of all just enjoy. And I just want to say thank you to those people in the Southern Hemisphere who have stayed up till 9 o'clock. I had an afternoon nap, so that's why I'm so lively this evening. And yeah, it's great to see so many of you showing up this evening. So let us feel ourselves sitting in our chairs. If you can, please put your feet on the ground and just feel comfortable and follow the breath, breathing in and breathing out, breathing in and breathing out. And I really would like you to feel yourself in your body. Just feel your feet as they connect with the ground, feeling yourself in the present moment. And as you feel that energy, connect with that earth energy. We have this beautiful earth energy that sits below us, and we connect with that beautiful energy and just feel that earth energy coming up through the physical body and moving in and around your energy, holding you in this present moment in time, and just allow that energy to flow and feel yourself being present. So just allowing that earth energy to flow around you. And then I'd like you to bring your focus to the center of your chest, into your heart chakra. And from there, I'd like you to connect to the highest point of light, to the universal energy, to the source, to the divine, whatever that is that vibrates higher than your own energy, and connect with that energy and allow that energy to flow in and around you. And really get the sense of these beautiful two energies that we are connected to, that support our energy, just flowing in and around us, and allowing ourselves to still. I'd like you to focus behind your eyes and then become aware of the center of your head. And in the center of your head, I'd like you to see a button, which is your analyzer button. And I'd like you to turn down your analyzer, turn down that mental energy, turn it down, turn it down. And in fact, I'd like you to turn all those thoughts right off for this moment in time. Just that busyness, that day, all those thoughts, and just turn it off. And then there's another button in the center of your head, and it's called the noise button. And I would like you to turn the noise button off. Just turn it down and turn it off. And I'd like you to sit in this beautiful space of consciousness in the center of your head. And just feel the stillness. And if there is anything in this space, I'd like you to open a door and put it behind the door. So it is just you and your energy and the earth energy and the universal energy. No distractions. And as you sit in this space in the center of your head, I'd like you to get a sense of your spiritual connection. And just getting a sense of that. And is there anything, any block, any stuck energy, anything that feels out of alignment in your spiritual energy? Maybe a little bit of grit. And just be curious around what that might be. As we move into the mental body, and we just scan the mental body, what thoughts pop into our head? Thoughts around blocks, thoughts that are repetitive, thoughts that also feel gritty, thoughts that maybe kind of just show up every now and again, but really are not helpful. So what is the grit in the mental body? And then we just come through into the emotional body. And just getting a sense of what emotions might be feeling a little bit uncomfortable, might be feeling a bit sticky, might be feeling a bit difficult. Just get a sense of what those are. And then just starting at the top of your head and scanning through the head, through the neck, just picking up any blocks, any grit, any dis-ease that might be in the back, in the neck, in the shoulders, in the arms, in the hands, down the rest of the back, down the front, and down into your legs and into your feet. And are there any specific senses of this grit, of block, of energy that is stuck and not moving? I'd like you to pick the biggest blob of grit, of blocked, of stuckness, and I'd like you just to tune into that and see what it is. And just get an idea of a circumstance, a person, a physical ailment, difficult emotion, a belief system, a disconnect from spirit. And I'd like you just to hold that, and I'd like you to choose the biggest bit of grit in your energy field and just solidify what that is for yourself. Just one. we just would like you to look at one within your life right now. At this present moment in time, in this incarnation, in this new now. And with getting that information, I'd like you to start feeling your feet on the ground, feeling yourself relaxing in your seat, and just coming out of that beautiful room and really trying to keep your analyzer off tonight and really your curiosity being turned up. So just turn that curiosity up, open to new information, and just bring yourselves back into the core.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you very much. So perhaps for some of you, there have been some surprises during this visualization. Perhaps some others of you will experience a not again, not this again type of moment. For now, I would invite you to just take that energy that you have identified, that block, that place where you feel a little bit stuck, or even where you have plateaued in your development and healing. Just keep it there with you for a few more minutes. We'll just take you into kind of a brief recap of of recent energy shifts, in case you've been distracted, or in case everything has happened so quickly that you're not quite sure yet. So I'm going to go into this like super quick, because at this point I don't want to go back to the pandemic anymore, but it all started there. So really what we refer to as the new now, this term that we have come up with during our channeling sessions, guidance received by our guides and higher self, really is a new collective energetic shift and evolution. And the bottom line is, when the pandemic started, our base chakra collectively, as a species, as individuals, the consciousness of our time shifted and changed. And perhaps in a naive way, we thought that was something like an event that would kind of open and close. But actually what we have observed energetically is that from that base chakra shift, the shift and change and fracture in some cases has expanded into the sacral, and is now kind of in our solar plexus type of area. So we can only predict and imagine that it will continue going up and affecting the entirety of our energetic systems as individuals and collectively. What does this mean? in practical terms, perhaps you might feel that you've been particularly restless, that your mental energy is particularly active. Remember, solar plexus is very much connected with the mental layer of our energy. Perhaps you feel that things are a bit out of place. They're not quite as tidy and orderly as you've been used to see them in the past. The time and speed of processing has changed. Energetic shifts happen very, very quickly. There is barely any time for integration. We go from one shift to another, and yet we're still a little bit bamboozled by what happened. And in all of this, there is so much change that we're not quite sure if we are progressing or just stumbling along and trying to barely cope with everything that is happening. Also, possibly you might have noticed that old patterns or old woundings re-emerging, old friends that you thought you made peace with within yourself re-emerging again. So this might be all things that you've been experiencing now. And I know, Cindy, you have been experiencing a range of all of these new now symptoms, and I'm going to call them the new now. Are you affected by the new now? Here are some symptoms to look out for.
And I think, Sole, for me, it's the layers of kind of all these layers seem to be, and the speed of it. And recently also AI, and how we are shifting as a species, and I don't know if any of you have been keeping an eye on that, but definitely there is a shift in how information is going to be digested, how language is going to be digested, and almost being able to keep up with what that is and stay current in the world today, I think has shifted our energy and how we process, thinking that our energy body is receptors and transmitters, and all of a sudden, what is going on for us with the speed of this? And already we're nearly at the end of the first quarter of the year.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So is the speed, the new knowledge, the new experiences, the different vibration in energy, different level of consciousness, and maybe this is a conversation for another type, but I think artificial intelligence is a vibrational consciousness, maybe not in the way that we traditionally think about consciousness, but it is, in my opinion, a new way of seeing it. So really, how do we take care of our needs? How do we take care of our desires? How do we center ourselves? Like, where is the center, first of all, and how do we go back to it? So these are kind of all the reasons why, and background why we feel we need to change things up. And it's maybe one of those situations where we'd very much like to bury our head in the sand. And I am the first one to say that a lot of times I just hope that there are no more changes and shifts in energy, but ultimately they happen. So we need to find new tools. We need to find new tools. So I've seen in the comments a couple of people just agreeing that it's like, yeah, they agree this is happening for them. And there are big things as well. I mean, loss and grief showing up for people, really big energetic shifts. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we're processing quicker, but things are, so we were talking about before we started how our physical bodies are struggling with the amount of these shifts, and how, and one of the questions I said is how are our bodies going to change? Because we get a sense that our energy is changing, but we also think the physical body is going to start adapting to that, and holding the speed of this. So it will be interesting to see how species starts evolving with their physical body in order to do that. But we don't actually have all the answers to this. It's just
not yet.
We're working with that, but we do feel that we need to have different ways to create vision and strategy for ourselves, and how we look to healing our blocks, and how we're getting stuck. I don't know if people have, kind of done things before, and kind of that's worked, and then all of a sudden, somehow that's not finding the peace or finding the center of where we want to be, or who do we want to be in the future?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we really, we used to do our goals at the beginning of the year. Who's done their vision board for 2023? And it's already the quarter. It just didn't happen this year for people. And so many people have said to me, Cindy, we haven't created goals. We're not sure. And that's because there is this tumultuous pot at the moment, and we need to figure it out. And we need to work with it. And over the weeks, Sola and ourselves and our tutors and our students have started giving us ideas and formats. And, I talk about models to figuring this out.
Yeah. So this is what we're going to do this evening. So, we're going to help you progress in your journey by helping you identify where and why you're stuck, so that at least you start getting some coordinates. So we've actually been with the work that we've done with ourselves, with the students, with our clients, with our community, we actually identified 4 areas where this stagnation comes up and shows up. And I have, like, for those of you who are more visual people, I have a super quick forward slide to share with you in case you want to either take a screenshot or use it for future reference. And the 4 areas are grit, awareness, responsibility, and vision. So grit, awareness, responsibility, and vision. Now, I want you now to go back to that piece of energy that you identified at the beginning with Cindy's visualization. Just take it a little bit closer and work with it a little bit more actively and see where you're stuck. So for this specific issue that has been highlighted for you this evening, see what boxes you're ticking and what stage are you and where you're stuck and what you can do to get unstuck. So starting with grit. So this is an expression that I love. I just love, I'm a very sensory person. So for me, the concept of grit is when something is not smooth, where you can tell that there is something that has a rough consistency or texture. And this is perhaps a feeling of unease, maybe an illness, maybe a somatic manifestation in the body of something that it's out of balance. It might be also, and I don't think this gets talked about enough, issues connected with, like, either your home or your physical environment around you. And of course, the relationships, so maybe challenges or patterns that are coming up for you more on a regular basis. So in a way, this is the lowest level of engagement that you can have with a certain issue or block. You might get stuck in a place where these things are happening, they're not quite right, they're off balance, but you haven't really done any work on them. And I say this with no judgment. You know, we have so much to process and go through. It's only fair that sometimes something pops up. We know there's something off with it, but we haven't had a chance yet to really work through things. And to really demonstrate that I really say this with no judgment whatsoever, I'm going to give you, like, loads of examples of things that happened in my own life where I was completely stuck at a grit level of my healing. And I just didn't even know that I needed further healing. So something that happened to me some time ago in my home is I started having lots of issues with water. Leaking taps, leaking shower, major water leak that went through several different floors into the ground floor. I was living on the top floor flat back then, and it went down to the ground flooring. Dishwasher broke, the washing machine broke. All sorts of different things connected with water were not working around the house. And just, you know, burst pipes, quite major stuff for a place that actually was in pretty good condition. So there wasn't the excuse of it being an old property or something like that. So what also was happening in my life at that point was I was in a very toxic, emotionally challenging, somewhat emotionally abusive relationship. And that flow in my energy was really affected negatively, emotionally imbalanced for sure. And that was very much showing even in the environment around me. So we always talk about we create our own reality. We can manifest wherever we put our thoughts into, but also we can manifest things sometimes that are a reflection of our imbalance and struggle and feeling unwell, etc. So at that point in my life, actually what was showing up in the universe and the energy around me was water, which, you know, obviously is connected with, as an element, with emotions. And this just uncontrolled flow of water that didn't have, you know, that was just breaking and pouring out and very much reflecting my emotional state. But then something else, another example that I could give you is when my background is in corporate. I have a corporate background. And when I transitioned to do my work, the work that I do now, as an energy healer and a coach, I kept on getting clients that were dealing with big issues of grief and loss and quite horrific personal stories. And I just couldn't understand why the universe was bringing me these people. Back then, I never really had a big loss in my life, so I couldn't really relate to why these people were coming to me. There wasn't anything in my life. In fact, it was quite a happy period in my life. I just couldn't connect with the reason why. And then only later on in my journey, I realized that they were showing up as a mirror, as a manifestation of actually me under the surface going through a process of grief and loss for my old self and my old life and the energy and time that I spent building that persona, that career, etc. That wasn't right for me anymore, but nevertheless was something that I had worked on for a very long time. So these are examples of grit. They can happen also, for example, in the body. And I think a lot of us, I'm assuming quite a few of you have an interest in energy and how energy shows up in the body. At a certain point in my life, I was working so much. I was glued at my desk, at my screen all day long, until when one day I actually physically got stuck there. So I got myself in a situation where I got such a bad back pain that when it was the end of my work day in the office, and certainly was a very long work day, I couldn't get up. No matter how hard I tried, I just physically couldn't get up. So these are all examples of how the grit can show in practical, maybe sometimes unusual ways in our energy. And there might be manifestations that you don't necessarily immediately connect with a deeper level of healing, of information. And you might just get stuck and say, oh, I don't know why things around my house are just breaking. I don't know why I'm experiencing this in my body. I don't know why people are mirroring this type of behavior to me, or this situation, or this energy to me. Would you add anything else, Cindy?
I think often I have a saying that is, look for the signs.
Yeah.
And I think so often people say, oh, it's just one of those things. But when there are patterns of signs of things going on, whether it's in the physical, whether it's with mechanical, these can be such good indicators, but often we just go, oh, I'm so busy. Often for me, often it will be, I can see that, I can't, and we come to that in the next point where you just, but it's like keeping your awareness around yourself and around what is going on. I think sometimes we miss that.
Yeah. And I think we can take this to an extreme and become a little bit paranoid and see signs everywhere. And, not just because there is a red car driving in front of us that necessarily means anything, but it is also true that if there are repeated manifestations of energy, then there might be something underlying that within our energy, and it's showing in the world around us. So if you're stuck at that point, if you feel like, oh, I've been noticing weird things going on around me, one good way of shifting out of that is starting almost like a collection of these signs and looking at how these things are showing up for you. And very quickly you will start noticing patterns and waves, and the design will kind of take shape, and you will realize that instead of having individual images, actually they're all part of the same puzzle, and they're kind of jigsaw puzzle pieces. And when you start collecting them, you kind of start figuring out that there might be something else, a bigger picture forming.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say we found this bigger picture, and we have realized that there is something going on. And you have realized the reason why I was experiencing all these pains and back pain, etc., is because I was really working too much, and literally my body got me stuck at my desk to kind of teach me a bit of a lesson on looking after myself and picking up on the signs. So we then go into a stage of awareness. Now, you're probably thinking, awareness sounds fantastic. I want to have awareness. Yes. But awareness is also a stage where we can get stuck, and a stage where I would say probably one of the things that really can happen is spiritual bypassing. And we will explain what we mean with that. But it's one of those areas where you might get stuck because you really go deep in the exploration of the why. And this is when, we start maybe going into 25 past life regressions, not just one, like several multiple ones. When we go into, Cindy, you have a great example of, for example, how my pattern is ... and then wearing it as like a badge of honor or a banner or something that like we go back to as our way of identifying ourselves.
Yeah, we wear that. It's like, I'm impatient, so everyone, I'm short-tempered.
Yeah.
I'm sensitive.
Yeah.
And people around you, and you own that.
Yeah.
And kind of, well, I figured it out, and I know why I respond like that. Or often we own our traumas.
Absolutely.
From our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I'm like this because of, and
Mm-hmm.
I am that, and I am this, and I am that. And really for me, this is a major place where we get stuck. And I'm saying this because I found myself stuck in those places in various times of my life where I'm doing the work, and we'll say, I'm doing the work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm seeing a healer. I'm going to my therapist.
I'm reading books.
I'm reading, I'm finding out about it. I'm watching YouTubes. But that's where we're sitting.
Yeah.
And block is the stagnant. And for me, this is normally the biggest area personally where I get stuck in my healing journey.
Yeah.
And I've been stuck sometimes for a good number of years going, down to the school, and I've got all the healings I need available to me, and I go and see my therapist, and I do all this work.
I'm aware.
Yeah, I know I'm sensitive. I know that I can sometimes, my boundaries aren't great, or my boundaries are very flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this shows up a lot, I think, as ancestral patterns as well. And I think what can be deceiving is also the sum of these banners or badges of honor that we carry sound very much like a positive thing. So if I take my own personal story, my maternal ancestral line, I had a grandfather who during the Second World War was made prisoner in Germany, and he was a very young man at the age of 20, and he was a prisoner for 3 years and came back, actually walking back from Germany to the north of Italy where his family was from. And he was, a very tall and handsome man, and came back extremely skinny, starved for 3 years in the cold, and very limited access to healthcare and food and all of that. And of course, that wasn't even like the worst that happened during that war, but certainly quite traumatic, especially for such a young man. So in my family line, there's always been this awareness around this very crucial piece of family history And also a sense of we're always prepared. Like no matter what happens in my family, everyone is prepared. We're prepared for every single thing that can possibly happen. We're always overstocked on food. Like no matter how, even if it's just me and my husband in the house, we're still overstocked with food. I remember my mom was always overstocked with food, but also overstocked with other things. Like when my grandfather passed away, well in his 90s, we found his drawers full of like extra pens and pencils and stationery, like stuff that even if he lived to the age of 150, he could have never used. So some of these things show up almost as good things, like, oh, I'm prepared for everything, or I'm well stocked, I'm foreseeing any issues that might come up. But really those are traumas, and the awareness connected with it, for as much as is good to know why we're acting in a certain way, and we have traced it down to where it comes from, whether it's childhood wounds, ancestral wounds, past life, old belief systems, whatever it might be. Awareness only takes us to a certain level. And I think awareness can be very deceiving because it makes us feel good. I know where it comes from. This is from my family, from my childhood. And it's quite easy to get stuck in that place, possibly spiritual bypassing, and being in a situation where you then don't move forward.
And so the other trap around this awareness is because it's a doing thing. I've been to my healer, I've done 8 sessions of therapy, I'm journaling every day. And I'm not saying, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying these things are wrong. I'm saying these are part of a healing process. But it gets stuck, the energy gets blocked. And that's why we asked you where your grit was sitting. We were asking you where your grit was sitting in your energy field, because where is it moving to? Where is it at? Where is it sitting? And why do we not sometimes get the transformation we're looking for? And that's really what we're talking about tonight. So think about that grit that you found. Is it sitting at stage 1? Or is it sitting at awareness? I've done the work, but hell, I still show up like this.
Yeah.
Hell, I'm still choosing the same patterns. Right?
And with the stage of awareness, very often we're in a situation where we accept how things are. And I think there is a lot to be said about acceptance. But also, this runs in my family. How many times do we say this? This is how I was brought up. How many times we say that? This is who I am. This is how I see the world. So all those traumas, blocks, things that we want to heal, we really identify with them. I am a survivor. I am a fighter. I am highly sensitive. And all those things sound pretty good, right? But there might be a time when actually that label starts feeling like a bit constrictive or limiting. And that's when we transition into the area of responsibility. Again, another word that on the face of it, oh, and Sandy said, so awareness in the comments, I love this. So awareness is a journey and not the destination. Yes, absolutely. Also, awareness is one step in the journey. And it's part of our healing journey. Definitely awareness is a very important step, but by no means the final one. So once we have this awareness, we might then transition into taking responsibility. And for me, I'm just thinking, my grandfather was a young man in the 1940s. He's been like almost a century. I mean, he was born in 1920. We're now over 100 years ago. So I am my own person. I can decide for myself. The world certainly is very different around me. So I take responsibility, right, for identifying how am I involved in this story, and why am I still carrying these things, and why am I actively still carrying old belief systems or ancestral baggage and so on. Now, identifying that, great, fantastic. You start thinking this is not me, is a part of me. So you can take any issues or trauma or old belief system and patterns outside of ourselves. It's not us, it's a part of us. So part of my energy is the energy of a planner, someone who is always prepared. I have a very strong fighting instinct in me, yes, but I am also other things. That's not the only thing that I am. So I take responsibility for that. I don't fully identify with the awareness stage and all the labels that I put on myself. But what might happen is, well, if I am not a survivor, if I am not that label that I gave to myself, then I take that out of me. I take responsibility because I've accepted it in my energy, and I now don't want it or want to change it. But if I take it out, what's option B? What do I replace it with? Like, what comes up for me? If I'm not a fighter, am I a loser? Like, what am I? Am I the opposite of it if I take it out? So we can get stuck in this level of taking responsibility on a very much identity level, and very much resonating right now for people in their solar plexus. And a very easy way of really understanding this transition from the old and the new and kind of making your way from A to B is talking about maybe how archetypes show up in our energy. And I don't know, Cindy, if you wanted to add something at this point.
I'm sorry, I was saying goodbye to Andrew. Carry on. I will get your train of thought.
Okay, so one good way of connecting with this transition from the old and the new is to start identifying archetypes. So to start identifying how, if I took this label out of me, and if I could take it and have this label sit in front of me, turn it into a person, a three-dimensional being, a three-dimensional expression of this part of me, what would it look like? How would they act? What would they care about? And really building a full archetype that you can fully embrace and understand. And we all have those archetypes at play within our energy, right? We might be the protector, we might be the nurturing mother, we might be the teacher, but sometimes some of these archetypes show up in our energy as the old archetypes. That's the point where we were at. So.
And I you know, for me, it's so interesting with you just speaking about the war and your grandfather and how we still carry the archetypes of survival, and yet our species has grown so much in the since those wars, those terrible wars that we've grown in some ways and in other ways. But I mean, from a technical, you know, what we were talking about, the new now and the speed of things and how things are happening, we are so much more aware and have so much more knowledge than we have ever had. Species, and therefore our needs have actually changed, yet we're operating in that old operating survival system. And archetypes are controllers. They are, you know, they really operate from a place of fear. Remember, people who came out of that war were very fearful. Do we have enough food? So this operating from fear really doesn't serve us. And we start identifying with that, and again, we start owning it at this point of responsibility. So I know I'm that, and I'm behaving like that. But so what if I let it go? And I think that's really the point you're making. What happens if I let it go? And I see, like, the person in the chat who's just said around struggling with the awareness stage, what about creating that person and say that this is a default of some of my behavior? This is the archetype that I default to.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And some examples of these archetypes, because I think it's important to make it kind of quite tangible so that people can get a sense for how this shows up in their lives. Because when we talk about archetypes, I don't know about you, but maybe like the first thing that comes to mind is like some really complex things that are like very abstract, but actually they're just almost like characters of a book. You know, picture that part of yourself as a character of a book or a movie of whatever story, and how would that character behave. So for example, something that I've seen with some of my clients is, and this comes up especially for people who have a background of parents maybe being immigrants, and so coming from a very different culture, and then the kids who grow up in quite a different environment as their parents. Obviously they have a very different life experience, and I've had recent experience this week with a couple of clients of how the archetype that was kind of wrapped around them from their parents was, you're such a rebel because you don't comply with some of the standards or expectations that we have around you. And we can very much grow up with carrying that archetype and just thinking, yeah, part of me is being a rebel. But it might be that we need to shift that into something different, that we need to shift that in maybe being an activist rather than just a rebel without a cause that is destructive. Maybe we have that energy, but we can shift it into something different, something positive, a new archetype that is an activist that wants to start positive change around them, not just breaking structures. Or if we go into another quite classic archetype, it would be the archetype of the protector. So whether it's the family man, the head of the family, whether it is perhaps like a bit of a stereotypical patriarchal fatherly figure, you know, the man that protects the home, the man that protects the house, and shifting from that, for example, a newer archetype would be an archetype of the collaborator. So we go from a very hierarchical type of structure, quite traditional, quite patriarchal, into more of a structure of collaborating with others. And so it's still an archetype that looks after the needs of other people, makes sure that the needs of other people are met, but we go from quite a hierarchical structure of the protector into more an energy of collaboration and working together. And I know, Cindy, one of your favorite ones is moving from the manipulator to the influencer.
Yeah, and that was really interesting for me. And Lisa, it's a great question, and we'll come back to that. But recently, I had stakes in the ground around something that I wanted to happen, and I was quite in our family. And I kind of went around the family and spoke to my sisters and kind of influenced. Well, wasn't influencing. I was actually getting them to buy. So when the family really got together, what I put forward, everyone was kind of prepared for, and I really manipulated the system because at the time I wasn't aware of it, but I was doing it for my benefit. And somebody actually turned around to me and said, "You're manipulating that situation because you want it so badly." And it was a friend of mine who's a psychologist, and I said, "Well, what's the opposite of that?"
Mm-hmm.
An influencer. There's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
That really got us, it was part of that conversation, Sally, that got us onto the archetype around, oh my goodness, I'm stuck here because I don't even know that I'm manipulating. So when you look at where you're stuck in the family and you're going through that, it would be very interesting.
Yeah.
So
I want to answer that question. Shall we take that question from Lisa, because I think it's so relevant?
Absolutely. Do you want to take that question?
Yeah. So for me, definitely shifting archetypes within our own personal healing journey has a major impact on our ancestral line, because as our behaviors change, as we express our energy in a different way, that is definitely going to have an impact on our ancestral line for sure. It's guaranteed that your kids will need to figure out other stuff. I don't think we can ever heal and clear everything. There will be different things that come up. And I think different things will come up also as times change. So if you look back in history, things that were perfectly acceptable, maybe in the 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, now would be considered as traumatic. So whether it is corporal punishment, how many stories do we have of either parents or grandparents saying, oh, when I used to go to school, you know, it was totally normal for the teacher to slap me on the face. Like, there you go. So,
your friend.
right.
We received that.
A few decades ago, that was totally normal. It wouldn't flag up as a trauma. It would be something that is part of the system. So even with the best will in the world, Cindy's parents couldn't have brought that archetype into the light because the overall energy of society, of the world back then, wasn't at that level of awareness yet. So after the new now, there will be, I'm sure, a new now and many other change of vibration. So our children and grandchildren and so on will need to heal things that we're basically blind to right now, but at least we can clear the decks of those old archetypes for them. That's my view on it.
Yeah. And I think even in our diversity of how we think, I mean, if we think, you know, if I think back to sexuality and that involvement, you know, how that is involved in behaviors from in my time where, you know, where there was Stonewall really protesting for gay rights, and now where we actually see the evolution of that to where we are with diversity, with transgender and the queer community today, I think is amazing in terms of that information that is changing, and even within that, the archetypes.
Mm-hmm. And we just started, right? 50 years from now, 100 years from now, we'll see things very differently. We look back at 2023 and think, oh my goodness, that was medieval times by comparison.
But absolutely, but I think it shows how quickly we're evolving.
Absolutely.
And
so,
how we need to shift these, to keep current with our archetypes.
Yes. So the key point of the getting stuck at the responsibility stage is once you have identified those archetypes that are playing within you, you might get stuck into the, okay, I take responsibility, I'm carrying this, I don't want to pass it down to my kids, I don't want this to influence how I relate to my spouse, to my friend, to the community around me. But we can get stuck into what do I do next? And how do I consistently create a new version, sometimes in a world that hasn't seen a new archetype yet. So we sometimes need to engineer these new archetypes pretty much out of nothing. So it's a very explorative process that we need to go through with curiosity to figure out what the new archetype is. We might get stuck at that point, and possibly, you know, whether we are under stress or we don't have time to do things, or we just feel like giving up a little bit, we revert back to our old ways. And we're like, yes, I know I'm manipulating this situation right now, but I just need this to get done. I have no time to be an influencer. I'll just be a manipulator, for example.
I'm just going to tell the team what to do.
Okay, so if you don't have anything else to add on this point, Cindy, I'd like to move to the last point. Yeah?
Yeah.
And the last point, again, we move into, so let's say that we have found our new archetype. So what is our new happiness? How do we find ourselves? How are we engineered this new version of ourselves? Maybe we have very successfully transitioned from being a protector to being a collaborator, and we feel very proud of that. We possibly changed the multi-generational, multi-decade habits and belief systems, And we created a vision for ourselves. Now we can actually get stuck at that point as well, because we can get some sort of like vision board syndrome, I guess you could call it, when we have a picture that we've painted in our lives, that we're painted in our mind, but there is not necessarily a strategy to get there or a specific purpose behind it. And if we made such major changes, then possibly the people around you are not understanding why you're different now, why you're acting in a way that is not what they expect. And you might feel that because you're working within a new system, a new archetype, a new game that you have created, this set of rules are different, but you don't quite know what they are. There isn't like a clear win around you. There isn't a clear goal around you. So you might be looking for community or collaboration or support, but you find that there is a misalignment between giving and receiving love and support from people around you. Would you add anything to that, Cindy, vision-wise?
For me, I think what is really important around that situation and where I think we fall down is this giving and receiving love, and what our equity is in our lives and what is it we're really trying to achieve, and I think that's changed. I think that is more around the feeling, it's more around the community, and I think we're heading for that. And I see this with some of the clients that I work with, whereas they have changed, yet they're showing up in a community of a big financial organization that is still operating in an archaic operating system, and like, what is the next step for that archetype? And that's where that archetype gets stuck, is what further does it need to do? And often also in families, they try and change, historically, where it's been the parents guide the family and they are the honor your mother and father, and there is this type that again is operating an old system, and you have changed your operating system and then you give up.
Absolutely. So that's actually quite a big breaking point.
Yeah, that block of like, I've changed, I'm in the new world, but mother and father still think that they know everything, and so do I just go back?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the new archetype, really where the block is, around changing. And that is the point which can be hugely transformational.
Absolutely.
And where big decisions start being made and big changes. And those are those crossroads. And that's why I'm doing this with my hands, because I'm being guided to say those big crossroads, those choices, those you can feel it soul changing that you come to. And then you have a choice.
Yeah. And I think really so often we talk about ourselves as being healers, as wanting to help and support others, and we also say, oh, you can be a healer in so many different ways within different systems, and you can say hello to the lady and the checkout at the supermarket and etc. We always give these examples now, but I think it's really this point of the vision and taking the vision into the world. That is when really we complete that stage of our healing and we stand in the world with purpose, giving and receiving love, and looking to connect with people and community that are also trying to make that change, not just for the one, but into our loved ones, our families, our communities, and eventually the rest of the world.
And the collective.
Absolutely.
and how that, and we can all feel it's breaking, and what is our role, and where do we fit in, and I think that's really where we are at this stage, is kind of, how do we navigate this? How do we look at this? And Sola and I have been through this journey ourselves and have worked with this, and we've been, we sat with a group of tutors, and we did channeling last year for 6 months, just to get insight on what it is we need, and this is where this methodology that we've put together of these 4 areas of transformation, and where we get stuck and why that hasn't happened, because it's happened to us around in being in the awareness. I was in the awareness around something in my life for 10 years, and completely not really looking at it and unpacking it and thinking I'm doing all the work, but nothing's changing. So with this new methodology, there's a way to be part of it, but also to shift, and also the future self is a lot more fluid. It's a lot more around, it's not linear. It's not this goal, that's the step, that's the way forward. That's already at step 1. So really, yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
And I can see from the comments that people are really starting identifying personal blocks within the framework and the different areas that we talked about. So, for example, I feel stuck as a giver, and although I have done a lot of work on self-worth and receiving with gratitude, I am still surrounded by people and communities who are used to me taking too little and sacrificing my needs. So this is when you have found this new archetype, you don't just want to be the giver, you want to go into a flow energy. Your new archetype is about flow, it's not about just giving one-sided, and then you need to bring that vision out. In some cases, the community around us will change and our families will change, and we might move away or move on from some relationships if those are not able to evolve with us.
Very true. So, Solly, on to what's next, because we're running a little bit over time.
Yeah.
All the South Africans now have matchsticks in their eyes because they want to hear what's next. So if you are happy with me moving on to what's next, and maybe if a couple of people would like to put a few more questions in the chat, that would be great. So with this new methodology, we've put together 3 power hours next week. Now, if you can't make up power hours, they're 1 o'clock Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm just going to say in the Northern Hemisphere, the UK and South African time, it will be 2 o'clock. Europe will be 2 o'clock. And we're going to take you through this process. And we're going to look, Lisa, so your ancestral energetic bonds, particularly around traumas, releasing negative patterns and cultivating positive connections with ancestors. And we're going to look specifically healing a relationship with one of your parents to support the emotional healing. And then we're going to develop a strategy and an action plan with purpose for personal healing by incorporating some supportive archetypes. So we're going to look at the old archetype, we're going to look at what is a possibility of a new, and how one can start working towards creating that new archetype. And Saskia, thank you for that fire. And I know Saskia's story, and I know why she's excited. Because she's really trying to move out of a very old ancestral environment into being the new, but still carrying the values, the good values of what is there. So I'm excited too to see how this process work. So we're going to be doing that over the next week. But also, guys, if you're identifying with this conversation and what we've shared with you tonight, we have put together a fantastic transformational healing journey around how you relate to others. So your families, your love relationships, your friends, how you need to look at your relationship with yourself to relate with them. And then that is the first phase. And then we go into the second phase of how you then would relate to the world, your jobs, money, and your lifestyle, and changing that. So Soleil is doing the posting and cutting and doing in that. But that will also be that will also kind of give you a chance to transform into who this new person is that you want to be in the world and how you want to show up. So come and do come and do these workshops with us. Soleil's just said, we will record them. This will be recorded. Please, we're happy for you to share this with your friends. We think we're breaking some new ground here in terms of transformation in the new now. And as many people who can experience this and share this is really important to us. So we're excited about next week. And yes, from me, I'm going to say thank you to everybody, unless there are any questions. And I'm going to hand over Soleil because I know I'm going to have I might have forgotten something, which I'm going to say, what have I forgotten? I forgot something. And
I just wanted to say that for those of you who have registered for tonight's event, you're already registered for the mini course next week. So there is no action for you. You will get an email reminder. You will get the new dialing details for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And there will be recordings for this evening and for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday session. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to join the transformation, and healing work is hard enough in itself. So we're trying to get the practical side of things as easy as possible. And I put in the chat a link to the Nest in case you'd like to read more about it. And please, as always, if you'd like more information, Cindy, her calendar is open for one-to-one chats if you have questions around it, and you can just directly connect with her, and she'll be able to guide you and let you know whether it might or might not be the right fit for you and your journey. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for all of you for joining us this evening. And I really can't wait to do the second part of this month dedicated to the new now with you on Monday, so that we can shift from the methodology, the more chatty part that we've done today, into the actual big transformation. And we all have a little thing with at least one of our parents that we want to sort out and shift. And by the way, whether your parents are still here in the physical world or not, it doesn't matter. Or whether you met them or not, or whether they are biological parents or not, it doesn't matter. It's open to everyone who'd like to heal the energetic connection with their parents. That's all.
Thank you, one and all. And thank you, Soleil, for co-hosting and being here with me this evening. It's always such a pleasure to bounce off and work with you in the way that we do.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.